and welcome to our Hatha Plus practice. For today, as often, we don't need too much. I've got a blanket here, that's my standard for kneeling positions and else. And then I've also placed my 2 blocks here. Do we really need 2? Perhaps not. 1 might be enough. If you don't have any of that, you will get away with it too. So as often also, please start lying down on your backs and find a comfortable position. You may, of course, support yourself within that comfortable position. So if you have a bolster at home, for example, you might place that underneath your knees. If you have the blanket, maybe using that folded up as a thin cushion or to keep you warm. Take this little while to settle into a shape that feels right for you. Various options here. Your legs could simply be out long and in a Shavasana style matter, they might roll out. You could as well bend your knees, place your feet wide and let the knees fall in. We call that a constructive rest. It's quite beneficial and releasing for the lower back if that is challenged today. You could have your knees over a bolster, rolled up blanket or cushions as well. And as a last and more sensational option, you might bend the knees, let them fall out to each side and touch the soles of your feet together. Called Supta Baddha Konasana or the reclined angle pose. You might have used this time of explanation for yourself to explore the shape that you would like to be in. And sometimes we come to this mat and we're filled with ideas. Ideas about the practice, ideas about how we should look. I encourage you to let that be. And perhaps use this time to really explore a different option, maybe to what you used to do. Or just be in this moment if you know this is your most comfortable positioning. Today, I would like to tap into our worries, a certain amount of anxiousness, perhaps, or even fears. If you have any of what I've just mentioned going on in your life at this point, something specific might have popped up. It's okay to work with that. But also, you might choose to focus on a slightly deeper layer. As that what you just had occurring in the mind is at the forefront of the mind, potentially. So perhaps simplifying the approach if there's something in the forefront of the mind and exploring a worry, a fear, or an anxiousness within this safe space that is your mat. Whenever influences from the outside are becoming a little bit much, that is the place I retreat to. Not necessarily the mat, but seeing the mat as a symbol of turning inwards. You might feel the worries inside of you with less specific ideas. Maybe it's more of a slightly faster heart, a change in your breath, a feeling in your tummy. See if you can allow yourself to be restful and notice those sensations if they're there. Perhaps you are already tapping into the opposite and finding something quiet to rest in. There is a safe space to return to in your mind at any given time during any practice. it is to focus on the sensation in the body, if that is your go-to, or to focus on your breath. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, perhaps on a long, slow breath out of your mouth. Let's practice those for a few rounds. Deeply and slowly breathing in to fill your lungs. Then breathing out of the mouth. Breathing in deeply. And out of your mouth slowly. Three more breaths like this, and you might change the way you're exhaling. Through a wide open mouth could be relaxing. Maybe narrowing the mouth down, pursing the lips, or slimming the space between the lips to breathe out through the mouth more slowly. Once you completed those 3 deep breaths in and exhalations from the mouth, take another rest and notice yourself again. From this place of being, you might start exploring a full yogi or 3-part breath. With the inhalation filling the abdominal area, lifting the breath to the lower rib cage and guiding it to your collarbones. When you breathe out, engage the belly lightly, feel it falling in. Let the ribs come in, the upper chest relax. Then start all over again, breathing to your belly, expanding the ribs and up to your collarbones. And breathing out again from the belly to the ribs and to the collarbones. Let each breath flow like this now for a little while. Full yogic breathing, those of you familiar with and wanting to, you could add the Ujjayi technique. Nothing in particular to focus on today, so only an add-on. Allowing yourself this deeper breath flowing in and out. A mindfulness practice in itself, a breathing practice on top, 3-part breath. If you feel like exploring yourself in relation to the breath a bit further, you could add a short pause after the inhalation as well as after the exhalation. No need to count any of that. Only an exploration of how the hold of the breath might make you feel. If you notice it makes you anxious, you might still continue on for a couple more breaths, experimenting with it, but perhaps keeping the pause real short. If that feeling doesn't go away, please do stop holding the breath. Acknowledge yourself for being uncomfortable with this and allowing yourself to be okay, to accept that this is the case for you right now and here. Exploring deep, full yogi breath in and out with a pause on either end of the breath. If you're still pausing the breath, release that idea after your next exhalation and just breathe in straight after. Returning to this full flow of breath from belly to ribs to collarbones. but you might now be aware that there is a pause anyway. The pause there is subtle and we don't usually notice it. But after each inhalation, after each exhalation, there's a mini pause. And the only thing we've done is enhanced and lengthened that space. Perhaps this fact, as you explore it now, gives you a bit more comfort. The breath will still continue, even after a short pause. Well, I'd love you to continue your deep breathing, coming into a position from which we can move. While you stay lying down on your back, bending your knees or helping your knees up depending on your position, and stepping the feet down onto the floor, but very close together. So the feet are touching and the knees are touching. For me, hands behind the head is very uncomfortable. It might work for you though. If you don't have any shoulder or neck issues, you might be able to place your hands behind the head. That would be a preferred position, the elbows remaining open or as much as possible. I will alternatively have my arms out towards the side instead, and even turn my palms down to help me ground. That's the alternative to hands behind the head. Please start to squeeze your feet together and your knees. And then allow the knees to roll at first maybe a little bit to the side. Your feet are stacked, so one foot takes off the ground. You bring the knees back to center, you squeeze them together and you roll them to the other side. The other foot now lifts. So your feet will always be stacked. Your knees and feet are squeezing together as you're moving now, the knees from side to side. Trying to contain the movement to the place where your knees and feet aren't leaving each other. Aiming to keep yourself grounded even with your bent elbows and the hands behind the head. Allowing that movement to continue and rolling to the edge of one foot as your knees are coming out to the sides. When you completed your next round to each side, come into the center. Keeping your hands as they are, lifting the feet up off the ground, flexing the ankle joint, and then lifting the feet so the knees come to about 90-degree angle. You will notice they're in the right position because when you look forward, you can see your toes behind your knees. Again, please squeeze the feet and the knees together, holding this 90-degree angle and continuing the movement as you roll the knees to one side, bring them to the center, and then to the other. Here we're also holding knees and feet tightly together, but we're also maintaining a 90-degree angle of the knees, even when we bring them over to the sides. In between, you might check that you can still see your toes when the knees come to the center, a good indication that the angle hasn't changed. Our first movement was predominantly for the lower back. This movement here is more for the mid-back. No need to have my rhythm, it is yours, guided by your breath. Same here, when you're in balance, left and right side, come to the center, pause, release the feet towards your bottom, and make the knees a little bit heavier towards your chest. Arms are still staying the same. Feet are still touching, knees are actively squeezing together. We'll now move in a half circle style as you tuck the knees up to one shoulder, Then swing them across while you breathe in, and then tuck them up to the other shoulder. So as if you are hugging the knees in and up to the shoulder, there's a little tuck happening as the knees swing across and then drawing them up to the shoulder. Keep doing so. Same here. Shoulders stay grounded. Keep squeezing your knees together as you're moving side to side. That little extra tuck towards your shoulder is helping to release into the more upper back. It's also a tidbit of a core activation here. Continue for just a little bit longer, tucking your knees actively up towards the shoulder and circling them out to come across. Give the squeeze in the knees. We'll go for one more round to each side. A little tuck, a swing and a tuck. And when you completed, let the knees come into the center. Your feet land on the ground, and you might release your arms from behind, let them drop, perhaps even for a moment extending your legs out long. Observing yourself as you might choose to steady the gaze or close the eyes, and taking a note of how you're feeling around the torso, the spine, the hips. If you find a bit of stillness here in the body to explore, you might notice that there is a flushing going on now over the front of the body as we had the knees and hips bent for so long. I'm not only apologizing to you, but maybe to me too. I will now grab a block, and one is enough, and place that by the side of the mat within reach. Placing your feet then back onto the floor, now at about hip distance apart. You might have your feet walking up towards your buttocks, as we often do in our yoga practice. But today you could also choose to move the feet a little bit further forward, widening that space behind your knees. Arms lengthen down by the sides, the palms touching the floor. Squeezing your bottom as you breathe in and lifting your hips up. Breathing out and rolling the spine down towards the floor. So a rolling bridge position, breathing in to lift the hips and breathing out to roll the spine back down. Before you lift, there's always a little tuck of the pelvis, but we keep rolling up and down. If you have chosen to step your feet a little bit wider or further away from your bottom, you might notice that the backs of the legs are working a little bit harder. If you want to play with this, step the feet a little bit closer and then continue the movement. And notice how that changes, especially the engagement of your legs, as well as potentially the feeling that you have rolling up and down the spine. Once you've tried, you might come to the favorite positioning of the feet for this practice, and then still continue for a little bit longer. I will now personally even go as far as flexing the ankle joints and only having the heels on the floor, while still rolling the spine up and down. Please feel free to copy that as an exploration if it suits. Let's go for one more round up and down. And if you're on your heels, please ground your feet, and then rolling up one more time to pause. Taking your block, if you've got one, and using it flat as you might place it to where it usually goes first, underneath the sacrum. Rest the hips down and let the sensation settle. If you don't have a block, you can do that with a folded cushion as well. For the actual further release, slide the block a bit further down towards your feet. So far down that even your tailbone is just off the block. And you're feeling like your bottom will slip down to the floor if you don't do anything about it. This is how far forward your block is now. If you found that place and the whole spine is basically hanging towards the floor, you might like to try and extend both legs out. Oftentimes when the block is this far down, there's actually more of a release through the lower back when you extend your legs, rather than when you're on top of the block. So perhaps exploring that. If it's not yours, please bend the knees again. If you can, open the arms, steady the gaze or close the eyes and hold here. Let gravity do the job of drawing your mid to lower back down towards the mat without you doing anything at all, just resting over the block. When we feel anxious and worried, it is often about our foundations. It's about life's security, family, being able to eat and have shelter. This is the lower part of the body where we're holding these expectations or basic needs. If we are worried that they aren't met, these are beautiful energy centers to work with in the practice. You might have been holding that now for about a minute, which is enough, as you could choose to place your feet back down onto the mat, lift your hips to remove the block, and softly landing back down onto the back. If it's possible for you, please bring your hands back behind the head. I will at least do that on one side, let the other arm release. Then lift both feet off the ground, cross your ankles. Open your knees out wide, pointing your feet. With the inhale now, move slowly, tapping toes towards the mat. With the exhale, rock your knees up towards the shoulders. Breath in, tapping toes down. Breath out, swinging knees up. Keep the knees wide when you tap down as well as when you tuck up. You might get a little bit of momentum here, but that's not important. Just controlling the tap down while you inhale and then lift it up while you exhale. Last round with this cross. As you pause, changing the cross of the ankles, pointing your feet again, leave the knees wide. And inhale to tap the toes to the floor and exhale to rock the knees up to the shoulders. Let's continue that for a few more breaths. It's your range of movement, but please try and keep the knees wide. It's part of acting to strengthen around the lower back, the core muscles that help us support our lower back. Last one now, and I'm hoping you're feeling that in your tummy. Then release. Land your feet on the floor. Perhaps extend your arms over the head, maybe extending the legs downwards, and then take a deep full body stretch. You might then slide your arms and legs over to one side, feel more extension in the other. And then changing sides for a side stretch to the opposite. You might even curl yourself up on a side and then slowly rising to a seat. In the seat, I will choose to sit towards the heels, and I will use my block between the feet to be more comfortable. The breathing practice is possible in a different shape as well. So if sitting like this, even with support, is uncomfortable for your knees, you might extend the legs forward or choose an easy pose instead. Please rest the hands down. Palms are facing up at this point. The shoulders are gentle shrug back. And let the tailbone soften towards the ground. And take a breath in so the belly is slowly expanding. Then pull your lower abdomen back on a breath out, a sniff through the nostrils. In breath, the belly relaxes. Out breath, lower abdomen quickly pulls in, and we're sniffing the breath out of the nose. Let your mind focus be the pulling in of the lower abdomen, the sniffy breath out of the nose. Quite quick, the out breath. If that makes you feel dizzy or uneasy, please come into deep full belly breathing instead. If you're comfortable with that lift inwards, you might create a different pace. You can go as fast as you like. Keep it slower. Or really speed it up. Please continue in your pace just for a tad bit longer. Then deep breath in, slow, long breath out. Pause, maybe your eyes closed or a steady gaze downwards. And take a note of a shift of energy. Doesn't matter how strong, how slow, how fast you went. The aim of Kapalabhati here was to lift the energies from the space right up through all the energy centers. Perhaps then leaning forward, you might release the block to the side of the mat and coming into a standing position. Depending on how you positioned your mat, you might step towards the short front edge of the mat and facing there. I will be facing you for now, so it's easier for you to practice with me. Standing at about hip distance and aligning the outer edges. Squeezing the inner heels towards each other to start supporting legs, pelvis, lower torso. I would ask you to bring the left hand like a little bowl underneath your navel facing upward. Make a gentle bowl with your right hand too and place that above the navel so that the open palms, cup style, are facing each other. Make sure your shoulders are easy. You can tuck the elbows into the side as a support. And perhaps closing the eyes now or steadying your gaze. Keep the inner heels lightly drawing inward to support the stance. And start to feel into the space between your palms. This is Pala Mudra. Pala Mudra has the power to make you comfortable, to release anxiety, and allow you to find a more peaceful place within yourselves. We will allow this mudra now to move. As you open your eyes, steady the gaze. On the inhale, open the top arm and start to look over into the hand. On the out breath, bring the top arm back in, rejoining for Pala Mudra. Open the lower arm and turn your gaze to the hand as you breathe in. And again, returning into the mudra. Repeating with the upper breath in to open and turn the gaze, the head. Breath out, joining in with Pala Mudra. Inhale, lower arm opens. And exhale to join back in. Settle, strong in the legs, inner heels inward. Gentle in the energy space between the hands. We'll continue but extend the movement. For the inhale, open the top arm, looking over. For the exhale, lift that arm over the head into a side bend. On the inhale, reopen this arm. On the exhale, returning to your mudra. Lower arm opens, breathing in. Exhale, bring it over the head for a side bend. Inhale, extend the arm and gaze. Exhale, return to mudra. We'll repeat. Upper arm opens, breath in, look over. Exhaling, arm overhead, side bend. Inhale, open the arm again. Exhale, Pala Mudra. Lower arm opens, breathing in. Exhaling, bring it over the head for a side bend. Inhale, open again. And exhale, close for Pala Mudra. Maybe also your eyes are closing. Keep the inner heels drawing inwards, your shoulders relaxed and easy. As you breathe, feeling into the energy space that you notice. We will commence the movement and again edge to edge. Top arm opens as you breathe in, looking over. Exhaling, finding a side bend. Let's open both arms as you breathe in and perhaps lift the opposite foot, finding a star pose. Landing your foot and condensing energy back to mudra. Lower arm opens, breath in. Out breath, side bend. In breath, open both arms, perhaps pointing the opposite foot away, balancing star pose. Land the foot and come back to Pala Mudra. I will now change my stance for you to follow easier. Top arm opens again, breath in. Out breath, side bend. Inhale, open your arms. Perhaps it's the opposite leg that lifts. Hold here and swing the leg behind in a big step. Take your arms out and find a warrior two as you bend into your front knee. Gaze might be forward over the front hand fingertips. Arms could be turned. You might have soft elbows, but strength reaching all the way into the hands. If you're feeling good here, you might choose to hold. Or you could lift the front foot, take the hands to the back thigh, and find a variation of Skandasana, a bit of a stretch into the front leg. Lower the front foot again. Take a big breath in to lift your arms, the back heel, and then step it again to the front of the mat. Joining your hands back into Pala Mudra. Take a pause. Lower arm opens as you breathe in. Exhale, lift it over the head, side bend. Open both arms, maybe lifting the opposite foot, star position. Swirl that leg around, land it down, arms out, bending front knee, warrior two. Same here, arm position feels strong in the shoulders or else. You might turn the hands upward, but keeping your gazing point forward. The energy still flows in the same sense through the arms, although you might modify. If you're feeling good, warrior two is your choice. If you like, lift the front foot, come to the heel, bend the back knee, and sink a little bit in. Your hands might be resting upon your thigh. Perhaps there's a stretch sensation in the extended front leg. Land the foot again, take a deep breath, lift your arms, the back heel, and then stepping again to the front, and one more time coming back to Pala Mudra. As you stand here, closing the eyes and steadying your gaze and feeling back into the energies. As you still hold, starting to raise your right heel, turning the knee open, and you could choose to rest your heel to your ankle. You might lift the foot to the lower leg, or you might help the foot to the upper inner thigh, finding your variation of the tree with Pala Mudra. If you feel playful, open your top arm and take a breath to look over. Maybe lifting the arm and finding a side bend. Releasing your arm again, maybe once more changing your gaze. Then joining back into your Pala Mudra. Landing the foot, release both arms, find the mountain pose. Noticing how this makes you feel, being playful and releasing of any expectations to hold this balance. Let's join the hands back for Pala Mudra. Lifting the left heel, opening the knee out, and finding a place for the heel or the foot. It doesn't matter how high you're placing the foot or where you place it other than against the knee. Find some steadiness in your chosen tree variation, and open the lower arm as you breathe in. Maybe slowly following the hand with the gaze. Option to reach that arm over the head, aiming for a little side bend. You might reopen the arm, perhaps bring the gaze over one more time. Then join the hand into the mudra. Releasing the foot, releasing both of your arms. If the shoulders a little shrug down. And then take a deep breath to lift both arms. You might even end up in a mini back bend. With the out breath now, soften the knees and let your hands travel through the midline, finding a forward fold. For the in-breath, waving your spine long and reaching forward. For the out-breath, coming to land with your knees on the ground, perhaps using a blanket as a sitting support, I will fold mine up quite significantly and come to sit, taking the legs out in front. Beginning by bending the right knee now, fishbowl my block. And we'll open the knee towards the side. Now, if this is a little bit uncomfortable, a block might be useful. If you find in general this is not your position, the choice would be the legs out and a little bit wider. Bringing your fingertips down and then starting to lift the buttocks on the straight side. Draw that a little bit in so you're facing the extended leg. Now bend the knee of that long leg and point your toes up toward the ceiling. Use your fingertips into the ground to allow you to sit up tall and breathe in here. And with the exhale, walking the hands forward. Keep your gaze forward, direction of your toes as you align the forward fold from your hips. Leave the shoulders easy and at some point start to melt over this front leg. I personally keep my knee oftentimes bent because I feel like I can achieve a little bit more sensation when doing so without hurting my lower back. However, some of you have a different level of flexibility and you might be able to extend this leg fully. Please be mindful of the sensations in the lower back. And you can find a place in between really bent and fully straight. Keeping your toes facing up towards the ceiling and then surrendering to this head to knee pose or Janu Shirshasana. As you breathe, you might feel a sensation of lengthening forwards the crown of the head towards the toes. And for the out breath, you might release a little bit deeper down towards the leg. Stay focused here as the breath is flowing, inhaling, feeling a sudden length coming through the back. And on the exhale, maybe going a bit deeper. Each breath now flowing, fully aware of the breath and especially the exhalation and its impact on the shape for you. Then starting to walk the hands back, rising again to a seat. You might now fully extend the leg, but keep your toes pointing upwards. Taking the right hand and swing that behind to land your fingertips down directly behind your back. Take the other hand and bring that over. It might be the outer side of the hand touching the outside of the leg. While you breathe in, be heavy in both sitting bones. Then on the breath out, use your hand and fingers to guide you towards a twist. Maintaining the flexion here in the foot on your extended leg. Breathing in and out slowly. As you inhale now, turning the head forward, and with the out breath, releasing the arms. Let's extend the right leg out and bend the left knee instead. I will help the foot a little bit in and then let the knee roll out to the side. Again, I will use a little support for the knee to make the hip a bit easier. The foot here can be high up or a little bit lower down the leg. Placing fingertips down, start to lift the side of the long leg and pull that a little bit closer in towards you so you're turning naturally to the extended leg. Then bend the knee and flex the foot. Use your fingertips as you breathe in to help you lengthen your back. And then slowly walking the hands forward. Try and just fold from the hips at first. getting to the maximum point that is available for you. Please don't look at me or anyone else for the matter. Maybe close the eyes in that exploration. You've reached this point. You might deepen and slowly soften or surrender toward this extended leg. Keeping your foot flexed, even if you choose to extend the leg a little bit further. Mindful of the impact on your whole body if you do so. Being content with how you are feeling in this shape, and perhaps lengthening with each in-breath the crown and the back. And as you breathe out, softening that little bit more. You can keep this slight spinal wave going while you're maintaining your posture. You could also choose to be very still here. In any case, I encourage you to remain present, noticing any feelings and emotions that might arise. Perhaps it is more the thoughts that keep you busy. Acknowledge what comes when the body becomes more still, less to focus upon. And remember, there's always the physical body to anchor you into this moment, and there's also the breath that you could choose to focus on. Let us walk the hands back, coming to a seat. You might extend the long leg now fully, keeping the flexion of the foot, bringing the left hand fingertips directly behind and the back of the right hand towards the outside of knee or thigh. Draw yourself tall on the in-breath and use your hands and fingers on your out-breath for a twist, sitting firmly on both sitting bones. Aware that you're often leaning towards the side that you're turning. Try and anchor yourself to the ground for a long spine and a better twist within it. Breathing in as the head turns forward. Breathing out to release the whole shape, extending both legs out long. I will place the block away from the mat and shuffle myself down onto the floor. I will bring my blanket back as a thin cushion. If you like, this is a good time to put socks back on. As you slowly roll them down to rest upon the back, once more landing your feet on the floor. You might lift your knees up over the chest and give both knees a good hug in. Option to lift your nose to the knees on your next out-breath. With a tighter hug, perhaps lowering back down onto the mat. Extending both legs up toward the ceiling. Choice to keep your hips on the ground or make fists with your hands and slide them underneath your buttocks. Snuggling the elbows in and leaving shoulders quite soft. Keep your spine lined and look at your toes. You might find some random movement in your feet and ankles. No particular movement, just one that serves your feet and ankles well. We might all have very different sensations here depending on what shoes we wear, if we're wearing shoes at all, what we spend most of our time with, seated, standing, walking, running, jumping, or lying. After a little while of movement, hold your feet up there. Even allow yourself to admire the feet, just for what they are. And bend your knees gently, let the feet lower towards your bottom. Wiggle your arms out from underneath and let them come a little bit wider. Allowing in a lazy way your knees to roll from side to side. You might bring the knees into a little circle here, both of them circling. And then change the direction of the circles. Bringing now both hands, one on each kneecap, and separating the knees as you continue circling them. A little bit wider and then touching back together in the middle. Please do the same here, reverse the circles. Then landing your feet back down onto the ground, and this could be already your relaxation pose. Suggestion 1, even constructive rest, feet mat distance, knees falling in, arms releasing away from the body. Might be quite nice on the lower back. Second version, a bolster, rolled up blanket under the knees. And a third version of extending the legs out onto the mat. If that is your choice, please separate the legs, let the toes fall out. And we might all have a similar arm position, sliding the shoulder blades slightly under so the shoulders can soften. And the arms just out and away from the body. No need to bring them up to shoulder height. Just finding that soft spot where the shoulders are easy, the arms away from the body, arms facing up. And then have a last wiggle down into the pelvis and find your perfect positioning there. Feeling grounded in the lower body, tracing in your mind up the spine. Noticing the shoulders and shoulder blades on the floor on either side. Feel the neck hovering above the ground and the back of the head resting here quite heavily. Then for a little while, tune in with the ebb and flow of each breath. Life force. Noticing how you're feeling now. What are the sensations present for you? You might choose to remain right there with your mind, observing each breath as it flows. Noticing any distraction from this focal point and returning back to it if you wish. Or you might focus on the breath as well, but feeling also the slight rise and fall of the abdomen. Maybe finding comfort in that sensation of the abdomen moving together with your breath. As you focus on this movement, you might find access to your inner sanctuary, a place where everything is easy, safe, comfortable. You might find tranquility here. Take time to rest in this inner sanctuary if you can find it and visualize it. Simply following the rhythmic rise and fall of your breath into the belly. Giving the body permission to rest. To find deeper rest, you might invite each area of your body into this inner sanctuary. Inviting your legs and feet. Taking a few breaths to allow these areas to relax completely. Now welcoming your pelvis, abdomen, and lower back into your sanctuary. Taking time to sense these areas gently expanding and relaxing in synchrony with your soft, rhythmic breath. Allowing your chest and upper back to be bathed in absolute tranquility. Naturally experiencing greater lightness and ease throughout these areas of your body. Now invite your shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers into your sanctuary, allowing them to relax more completely. Your neck and head now entering and resting within your sanctuary of tranquility, allowing your eyes, ears, mouth, and jaw to soften and relax. Now allow your entire being to rest within your inner sanctuary, taking a few breaths to experience absolute tranquility. At peace, you might contemplate on resting within my inner sanctuary. I experience absolute tranquility. Resting within my inner sanctuary, I experience absolute tranquility. Resting within my inner sanctuary, I experience absolute tranquility. For the next few breaths, experience complete rest. this place in which you might be resting right now, your inner sanctuary. It's there for you. You created this space. It is always there. Sometimes it's easy to tap in. Sometimes you might need a mudra to assist you. Let's deepen the breath and start to move the body lightly. See what movements feel like they're taking you gently out of this caring space. Then perhaps find a way to roll to your side and join me in a seated pose when ready. To complete our practice, it doesn't matter how you sit, as long as you're able to give your shoulders the gentle shrug back and lengthen through the spine, perhaps dropping right down into all of your sitting bones. I would like to finish with Pala Mudra, left hand under the navel, right hand over the top. You might close the eyes once more and just feeling back into that space between the hands. Your breath will likely naturally be directed back towards the abdomen. A good way of breathing when we're feeling a bit worried or anxious. This mudra might drop you right into that inner sanctuary too, when needed. To complete, let's join the palms of the hands together. And from our inner tranquility and rest, we lightly bow and extend toward each other. Namaste.